The food may look normal, it may smell normal, it may even taste exactly the way it did yesterday, but after 50, the way you reheat certain foods can matter more than most people realize. Every day, millions of people open the refrigerator, pull out leftovers, place them in the microwave, toss them into a hot pan, or crisp them again in the air fryer without thinking twice. Yesterday's bacon, leftover grilled chicken, cold fries, a bowl of rice, food sitting in old oil, and the thought is always the same. It's already cooked, I'm just warming it up. But that is where the mistake begins, because the danger is not always the food itself. Sometimes the danger is what happens when that food is cooked, stored, cooled, and then reheated the wrong way. Some foods become more concerning when they are burned again. Some become risky when they are stored too long. Some are already linked to long-term health concerns before they ever touch the pan again. And some are reheated in oil that should have been thrown away yesterday. Now let me be clear, one reheated meal does not decide your future. This is not about panic. This is not about saying every leftover in your kitchen is dangerous. But if you are over 50, your daily habits matter. The foods you reheat every week, the way you heat them, the temperature you use, the dark edges you ignore, and the leftovers you keep too long can all become part of a bigger pattern. And that pattern is what Dr. Michael Carter wants you to understand today. In this video, we are going to talk about 5 foods you should be very careful reheating after 50, especially if your goal is to lower long-term health risks and protect your body with smarter kitchen habits. Food number 1 is common at breakfast. Food number 3 surprises almost everyone. And number 5 is not even technically a food, but it may be one of the most dangerous things sitting in your pan. So before you reheat your next plate of leftovers, stay with me, because the mistake is not always eating the food. Sometimes it is reheating it the wrong way. I'm Dr. Michael Carter, and on this channel I explain cancer prevention and senior health warnings in plain language. No panic, no fake kitchen myths, and no miracle claims. My goal is not to make you afraid of food. My goal is to help you understand which everyday habits deserve more attention, especially after 50. Because cancer risk usually does not come from one meal. It usually builds through patterns. What you eat often, how you cook it, how much processed food you rely on, how often you burn, char, smoke, refry, or reheat the same foods again and again. That is why today's video is not about throwing away everything in your refrigerator. It is about learning the difference between a harmless leftover and a risky kitchen habit. Some foods are better eaten fresh. Some should not be reheated repeatedly. Some should never be reheated in old oil. And some need to be stored correctly before reheating even becomes safe. So if you are over 50, or you cook for someone who is, pay close attention. Because the first thing I want you to understand is this: the real danger is not always reheating. The real danger is reheating the wrong food, the wrong way, over and over again. Now, before we name the 5 foods, I want to clear up one mistake many people make. Reheating itself is not always the enemy. A warm bowl of soup is not automatically dangerous. Leftover vegetables are not automatically dangerous. A properly stored meal reheated the right way is often perfectly reasonable. The real problem begins when 3 things come together: the wrong food, the wrong storage, and the wrong kind of heat. For example, if a food was already smoked, cured, heavily processed, fried, grilled, or charred, reheating it at high heat can make the problem worse. If you take yesterday's grilled meat and burn the edges again in a pan, that is different from gently warming it. If you take cold fries and keep cooking them until they turn dark brown, that is different from simply warming them. If you use old oil that has already been heated, cooled, and heated again, that is not the same as using fresh oil. And if rice or cooked food sat out too long before going into the refrigerator, reheating may not fix the original storage mistake. This is where many videos get it wrong. They say, never reheat food, and leave people scared. That is not what Dr. Michael Carter is saying. The better rule is this: do not fear leftovers. Fear risky leftovers. Fear food that has been burned, refried, stored carelessly, or reheated again and again until it becomes dry, dark, smoky, and overcooked. Because after 50, prevention is not about one dramatic decision. It is about small kitchen habits repeated for years. So let's start with the first food. It is common at breakfast, common in sandwiches, common at cookouts, and many people reheat it without realizing it already carries a warning before it ever touches the pan again. The first food to be careful with is processed meat. This includes bacon, sausage, hot dogs, ham, pepperoni, salami, deli meats, and many breakfast meats that are smoked, cured, salted, or preserved. And this is where Dr. Michael Carter wants you to pay close attention. The problem is not only that these foods are reheated, the problem is that processed meats already start with a risk profile before they ever go back into the pan. Many people eat them casually. A few slices of bacon in the morning, leftover sausage from yesterday, a hot dog warmed again for lunch. Deli meat crisped in a pan because it tastes better that way. But processed meats are different from fresh meat. They have often been preserved with salt, smoke, curing agents, or other processing methods. Major cancer organizations have warned for years that regular processed meat intake is linked with higher colorectal cancer risk. Processed meat has been classified by IARC as carcinogenic to humans, based mainly on evidence for colorectal cancer. Now, this does not mean one piece of bacon will cause cancer. That is not how cancer risk works. Cancer risk usually builds from repeated patterns over time. How often you eat it, how much you eat, what else is in your diet, whether you smoke, whether you are overweight, whether you are active, whether you are getting proper screening after 50. But if you are eating processed meat often and then reheating it until it becomes dark, crispy, dry, or burnt, you are adding another layer of concern. Think about bacon that was already cooked once, then refrigerated, then put back into a hot pan until the edges turn black. That extra crisp may taste good, but blackened edges are not the part Dr. Carter wants you chasing after 50. The safer rule is simple. Do not make processed meats a daily habit. Do not keep reheating them until they are burnt. Do not treat bacon, sausage, hot dogs, and deli meats like harmless everyday protein. If you eat them at all, eat them sparingly, avoid burning them, and choose healthier proteins more often, like fish, poultry, beans, lentils, eggs, or vegetable-rich meals. Because after 50, the question is not, can I survive one reheated sausage? The real question is this becoming my weekly pattern? And if the answer is yes, that pattern deserves attention. Now, the next food is different. It may look fresh. It may be homemade. It may even be high in protein, but once it has been grilled, charred, and reheated the wrong way, the dark edges tell a different story. The second food to be careful reheating is charred or grilled meat leftovers. This includes grilled steak, barbecue chicken, burgers, pork chops, ribs, kebabs, and any meat that already has dark grill marks, blackened edges, or a smoky burnt crust. Now, many people think this kind of leftover is harmless. They say, it is homemade, it is high protein, it is better than fast food, and sometimes that may be true. But the problem is not only the meat. The problem is what happens when meat is cooked at very high heat, especially when it is grilled, pan-fried, smoked, or cooked until the surface becomes dark and charred. That dark crust may taste good, but it is also the part Dr. Michael Carter wants you to respect. When meat is exposed to high heat, especially over an open flame or in a very hot pan, certain compounds can form on the surface. These compounds are one reason doctors often advise people not to make charred, burnt, or heavily grilled meat a regular habit. Now imagine this. You grilled chicken yesterday. The edges were already dark. Then today, you take that same chicken out of the refrigerator and put it back into a dry hot pan. You keep heating it until the outside becomes darker, drier, and more burnt. That is not just reheating. That is cooking the surface all over again. And after 50, that is not the kind of kitchen habit you want repeated week after week. The safer rule is simple. If you are going to reheat grilled meat, do it gently. Add a little moisture. Use lower heat. Cover it so it warms through without burning. Do not chase the black crust. Do not keep crisping the same meat again and again. And if part of the meat is already badly charred, cut away the blackened pieces instead of eating them. One barbecue dinner does not define your cancer risk, but a regular pattern of burnt meat, smoked meat, processed meat, and reheated charred leftovers is something worth changing. Because after 50, prevention often begins with the small parts of the plate most people ignore. And the next food is completely different. It is not meat at all. It looks harmless, it is cheap, and many people love making it crispy again. But when it turns dark brown, that is where the warning begins. The third food to be careful reheating is fried potatoes and dark brown starches. This includes French fries, hash browns, potato wedges, fried potato slices, heavily toasted bread, and other starchy foods that people love to make crispy again. Now, potatoes are not the enemy. Bread is not automatically dangerous. A simple starch is not the problem by itself. The problem begins when starchy foods are cooked at high heat until they become dark brown, overly crisp, or burnt. And reheating can make that worse. Think about leftover fries. They come out of the refrigerator soft and cold. Most people do not want them soft, so they throw them into an air fryer, a hot pan, or an oven, and try to bring back the crunch. But what often happens? The outside gets darker, the edges turn brown, some pieces become almost burnt, and the person thinks, now they taste good again. But after 50, that dark repeated browning is not something Dr. Michael Carter wants you to ignore. When starchy foods are cooked at high temperatures, especially fried, roasted, baked, or reheated until they become very brown, certain heat-related compounds can form. The darker and more burnt the food becomes, the more careful you should be. The safer rule is simple. Golden is different from dark brown. Crisp is different from burnt. Warm is different from cooked again until blackened. If you are reheating fries, potatoes, or toasted bread, avoid burning them. Do not keep reheating them again and again just to chase the crunch. Do not eat the darkest, hardest, most burnt pieces at the bottom of the tray. And if the food already looks overcooked, dried out, or dark from the first cooking, reheating it aggressively is not a good idea. A better choice is to reheat gently, use lower heat, and stop before the food becomes darker than it was before. Or better yet, choose fresh potatoes cooked lightly, boiled potatoes, baked potatoes without burning, or a vegetable-rich side dish more often, because the danger is not one fry. The danger is the habit of taking fried starches, reheating them at high heat, and eating the burnt edges week after week. And the next food is different again. It is not mainly about cancer. It is about a storage mistake that many people think reheating will fix. But once the mistake has happened, heat may not save the meal. The fourth food to be careful reheating is leftover rice that was stored the wrong way. Now, this one is important because it is different from the first three. Rice is not on this list because it is a cancer food. That is not the point. Rice is on this list because many people make a storage mistake and then assume reheating will fix everything. But reheating does not erase every mistake that happened before the food went into the microwave. Think about what happens in many kitchens. Rice is cooked for dinner. Everyone eats. The pot sits on the counter. People talk, clean up, watch television, or forget about it. Hours pass. Then the rice finally goes into the refrigerator. The next day, someone reheats it and says, "It's fine, I made it hot again." But that is not always how food safety works. Some food risks begin while the food is sitting out too long, and once that process begins, reheating may not make the meal safe again. That is why Dr. Michael Carter wants you to remember this rule. The safety of leftover rice depends less on the microwave and more on what happened after it was first cooked. Was it cooled quickly? Was it refrigerated on time? Was it stored covered? Was it kept for too many days? Was it reheated more than once? These details matter. If rice has been sitting at room temperature for too long, do not trust it just because it still looks normal. Do not trust it because it smells fine. Do not trust it because you plan to make it hot again. Food can look harmless and still be risky. The safer rule is simple. Cool cooked rice quickly. Refrigerate it as soon as possible. Keep it covered. Reheat it thoroughly. And do not keep reheating the same rice again and again. If you are not sure how long it sat out, throw it away. That may feel wasteful, but after 50, food poisoning can hit harder. especially for people with weaker immune systems, diabetes, kidney problems, or other health conditions. So remember, rice is not the villain, careless storage is the villain, and the mistake is believing heat can fix everything. The next item is even more hidden. It may not be sitting on your plate, it may be sitting in your pan, and if you use it again and again, it can turn an ordinary reheated meal into a much bigger problem. The fifth item to be careful with is reused cooking oil, and foods reheated or fried in that oil again and again. And this one is different because it may not be the food itself, it may be what the food is cooked in. Many kitchens have this habit. Oil is used once, then saved, then used again, then heated again, then cooled again, then used to fry more food, chicken, fish, fries, samosas, nuggets, leftover meat, anything that needs to become crispy again. And because the oil still looks usable, people keep it. But old oil tells a story. It gets darker, it smells heavier, it becomes sticky, it smokes faster, it leaves food greasy instead of clean and crisp. And when oil is heated repeatedly, especially to high temperatures, it begins to break down. That is the part Dr. Michael Carter wants you to respect. The danger is not one fresh spoon of oil in a clean pan. The concern is oil that has been heated, cooled, stored, reheated, and used again until it becomes dark, smoky, and damaged. If the oil smells sharp, looks dark, foams, feels sticky, or smokes quickly, that oil should not be used again. And after 50, this matters because your body has already spent decades dealing with inflammation, blood sugar changes, cholesterol changes, and everyday wear on the blood vessels. You do not need to add old overheated oil to the pattern. Here is the safer rule. Do not keep reusing cooking oil again and again. Do not refry leftovers just to make them crispy. Do not heat oil until it smokes. Do not trust oil just because it is still liquid. And do not ignore the smell. Your nose often knows before your brain admits it. If you want to reheat food, use gentler methods. Warm it in an oven at lower heat. Add a little moisture. Use a clean pan. Use fresh oil only when needed. Or choose foods that do not need frying again to taste good. Because number 5 may be the hidden problem in many kitchens. The food goes into the pan looking harmless, but the oil around it may already be damaged. And when that becomes a regular habit, it is no longer just reheating. It is repeating the same kitchen mistake week after week. Now that you know the 5 foods, there is one question left. Why does this matter more after 50? That is where the real prevention lesson begins. So why does this matter more after 50? Not because your body suddenly becomes weak overnight, not because one leftover meal becomes dangerous the moment you reach a certain birthday, and not because every food choice after 50 needs to feel scary. The reason is much simpler. After 50, your body has already lived through decades of small exposures, decades of food habits, decades of inflammation, decades of blood sugar changes, decades of blood pressure changes, decades of stress on the digestive system, liver, heart, blood vessels, and immune system. That means prevention becomes less about one dramatic decision and more about the patterns you repeat every week. One reheated sausage is not the whole story, but processed meat every morning is a pattern. One piece of grilled meat is not the whole story, but eating charred meat every weekend is a pattern. One batch of fries is not the whole story, but reheating dark, fried starches again and again is a pattern. One bowl of rice is not the whole story, but leaving rice out for hours and trusting the microwave to fix it is a pattern. One pan of oil is not the whole story, but saving old oil and frying food in it repeatedly is a pattern. And after 50, patterns matter. This is also the age when many people are already managing more health risks. High blood pressure, prediabetes or diabetes, high cholesterol, weight gain, lower muscle mass, slower digestion, weaker immunity, more medications, more inflammation. And for many adults, this is also the age when doctors begin paying more attention to cancer screening and long-term prevention. That is why Dr. Michael Carter does not want you thinking only about calories. He wants you thinking about cooking methods, storage, repeated heat, burnt edges, old oil, processed foods, and the habits that quietly become normal in your kitchen. Because your kitchen is not just where meals are made. After 50, your kitchen becomes part of your prevention plan. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. You do not need to panic over every leftover. You need better rules. And that is exactly what we need to talk about next. Because if you are going to reheat food, there is a safer way to do it. So, if reheating itself is not always the enemy, what is the safer way to do it? Here are the rules Dr. Michael Carter wants you to remember. Rule number 1. Store leftovers quickly. Do not let cooked food sit out for hours on the counter while the kitchen cools down, while people talk, or while the television is on in the background. Bacteria do not wait for you to remember the rice, chicken, or cooked meat on the stove. If food needs to be saved, cool it properly, cover it, and get it into the refrigerator as soon as you can. The mistake often happens before reheating ever begins. Rule number 2. Do not reheat the same food again and again. Take out only the portion you plan to eat. Reheat that portion once. Do not warm the whole container, eat a little, cool it again, and repeat the same process tomorrow. Every cycle of heating, cooling, storing, and reheating gives food more chances to lose quality and become risky. Rule number 3. Use gentler heat. Not every leftover needs to be blasted in a dry pan until it becomes crispy again. If you are reheating meat, add a little moisture. Cover it. Warm it slowly. Let the inside heat through without burning the outside. The goal is safe heat, not black edges. Rule number 4. Stop chasing the burnt taste. If the food is turning dark, smoky, hard, or blackened, that is not a badge of flavor after 50. That is a warning to stop. Cut away badly charred pieces. Do not eat the darkest part just because it looks crispy. And do not keep reheating food until it looks more burned than it did the first time. Rule number 5. Be careful with oil. Use a clean pan. Use fresh oil when needed. Do not keep reusing oil that has turned dark, sticky, smoky, or strange smelling. If the oil smokes quickly, smells sharp, or looks dirty, throw it away. The food may be fresh, but old oil can turn the meal into a bad habit. Rule number 6. Trust doubt. If you do not know how long food sat out, do not gamble. If it smells wrong, looks slimy, has changed texture, or has been in the refrigerator too long, do not try to rescue it with heat. Throwing away questionable food may feel wasteful, but getting sick from it is worse. And rule number 7. Choose the foods that reheat well: soups, stews, vegetables, beans, lentils, moist chicken, whole grains stored correctly, freshly cooked meals that are cooled, covered, refrigerated, and reheated one time. You do not need to fear every leftover. You need a better system, because after 50, safer eating is not only about what is on the plate, it is also about what happened to that food before it reached your plate. How it was cooked, how long it sat out, how it was stored, how many times it was reheated, and whether you burned it again just to make it taste better. Remember this sentence: leftovers are not the problem. Careless leftovers are the problem. Now, if you are wondering what to eat instead of these risky, reheated foods, the answer is not complicated. It starts with choosing better defaults.